After about a 5 year break, recently I've just got back into skateboarding. And unlike when I was a kid, this time I've actually been able to get half decent at it. But I've been thinking, it's 2025 and we have such genius inventions as crypto mining toilets and AI shoes. Yeah, I'm still here pushing my skateboard with my foot like some kind of medieval peasant. The skateboard should push me. So I realized what I wanted was an electric skateboard. Now I could just buy one, but I'm a stingy broke bastard, so I decided that I'd build my own. You can see here a quick and dirty CAD model that I did up showing my idea for the design. I'm thinking a belt-driven gear on the wheel from an electric motor which is mounted to the truck. Then of course with a motor controller to tell the motor when to spin and a battery to provide juice for the system. Now that I had that sussed, it was time to jump on AliExpress and order all of the parts I needed. A few weeks later everything had arrived. We had the motor controller also including a remote, the battery and the motor itself. The motor also came with this, which I'm not really sure what it is, but it looks pretty suspicious. But anyway, now it was time to hook up the motor controller and battery and give it a test. In my infinite wisdom, I first tested the motor without any kind of mount. I quickly realized I needed to mount the motor for further tests, but I didn't have a mount. So I decided to use myself as a mount. The first test was somewhat successful as the motor was spinning, but as you may have heard, the motor almost sounded like it was limiter bashing. Although you may want this out of your Falcon skid hack, for an electric motor this is a bad sign. I realized that this was happening because the hall sensor wires were out of phase. To find the correct wire arrangement, I had to test all the different arrangements of the wires. At first, changing the wires made it even worse and the motor was just vibrating. Although some things are useful when they just vibrate, in this case it was not ideal. But finally I found the correct arrangement for the wires. So I cut the butt connector, stripped, twisted and taped the wires, and the motor was revving up smooth as. As you saw in the last clip, the motor mounting kit had also arrived. This included the gears, mount, belt and hardware. Now it was time to try and attach the motor mount to the skateboard trucks. But as you can see here, the hole on the mount was too small to fit around the trucks. So I bought another skateboard with skinnier trucks for $30 from Facebook Marketplace. And it still didn't fit. So I started filing down the truck, and I was even lucky enough to have my mates help me out too. Look at them go, like their own little production line. Now the mount slid nicely onto the truck and I just needed to tighten up the grub screws to secure the mount in place. I was definitely somewhat skeptical of the ability for the grub screws to hold, but I guess we'll wait and see. Next I got the motor screwed into place and also attached the small gear to the output shaft of the electric motor. So it was time to hook up the electrics and give the motor a test spin. Success! The next job was mounting the bigger gear to the wheel. However, the gear did not quite fit into place on the wheel. So I grabbed the Dremel to clearance the wheel a bit. And as I attempted to show you here, I had the gear in place and I was stoked, until I made a realization. I fucking did the wrong side. So I did the right side, drilled some holes for the screws and got the gear screwed into place on the wheel. Time to hook it all up and give it a test. And it will probably help if I put the wheel nut on. The next challenge was fastening the electronics to the board. Again, my laziness and stinginess shined through, and I decided to use a lunchbox simply bolted to the board. The lunchbox was $5 from the local shop, and it was the last thing I needed to buy, which bring the total cost of the build up to 310 bucks, which, considering buying an electric board off the shelf would be a lot more, I was pretty happy with. I secured the battery and controller in the box with some Velcro strips and super glue. With that done, the board was pretty much complete and it was time to give it a test, and I couldn't help myself from jumping on the board straight away in the garage. As you can tell from that fucking zesty noise and the fact that I got thrown off the back of the board, I was pretty surprised with the amount of torque that the motor provided. So down to the road it was to give it a proper test.
Oh, Jimmy! It's alive!
Oh yeah. Thank you.
That was Jimmy Skates. Throwing you back to subscribe and like, please.
I also let my mate have a go. And even discovered that the board works great as a beer delivery device. All in all, I considered that a successful first few tests, and to be honest, I was really impressed with the capabilities of the board. However, the grub screws had backed out and the mount had come loose, leading to the motor scraping along the ground. To fix this, I stole a couple of bits of soldering wire that my mate uses to make jewellery, and I fixed the mount in place with tension from the two wires. And the next day I went out to give the board a proper shakedown. I managed to get cooking pretty quick on it, and at this point maybe I got a bit overconfident and I decided let me see if I can ollie it. So yeah, all in all, the board worked pretty well and was definitely a lot of fun, although it would definitely require some more heavy duty construction if I want to be able to do tricks on it without it disintegrating. I guess that's what you get when you use a fucking lunchbox.